Welcome to Startup Spotlight, brought to you by Earfluence, where we are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Today, we are going to hear from a startup making moves and seeking crowdsource funding. What that means is, if you like what you hear today, you can actually invest in the vision and you don't have to be a fancy venture capitalist to do it. The startup is Work4Workers, which aims to modernize the labor market with an open platform that connects contractors and skilled laborers safely and efficiently. From Work4Workers, we have Phil Pompa, the CEO, and industry expert Miguel Galarza. From them, you'll hear a rapid pitch, listen to a Q&A, and then have a chance to ask your own questions live. For all of your questions, simply ask them on the platform that you're watching on right now, whether that be YouTube, Twitter, or LinkedIn, and we'd be happy to answer as many as we can. All right, so I'm Jason Gillikin, CEO of Earfluence, where we produce several podcasts in the startup and investing space, including Founder Shares and First Check. So I'm super excited for this show today. All right, that's enough on me. That was real fast. That's enough on me, though. But let's get to the stars today. Phil Pompa is the CEO of Work4Workers. He brings his experience as a serial entrepreneur, consultant, and investor. His executive management and board level experience ranges from startups to Fortune 100 companies. CC, if we could bring in Phil real quick. Welcome, Phil.
Hi, Jason.
Great to have you today.
Thank you.
All right. Miguel Galarza has 45 years of experience in the construction industry, from entry level all the way to executive positions. Among other things, Miguel oversees technical proposals and contracts for the Navy, Army, Air Force, the city of San Francisco. I mean, this guy's CV is ridiculous. Welcome, Miguel.
Good morning, Jason, and good morning, Phil.
All right, guys. Well, I'm excited to hear more about Work4Workers. So I'll give you the floor here to tell us about your company.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate it, Jason. Work4Workers started out with an idea of one of our other founders. His name is Rudy Rakoba, and Rudy runs a construction firm here in the Austin, Texas area. And his biggest issue is one of finding labor and finding workers at an easy, more efficient method. Most of that today is done through, word of mouth. It's and or other contacts that you've had in the past, and trying to find people that way is something that can be very inefficient. It can take anywhere from 3 to 7 days, if not longer, to find workers and to engage them and to get them to start work. And that's what started the idea. And with that, what we're trying to do is basically allow the connection of a general contractor and a skilled construction worker and make that connection via their smartphones. When we look at this, and there's about 4.5 million workers like this in the U.S. that are temporary in nature, not employed full time, and that's per BLS data. And it turns into, when you look at what the market size looks like, it's over $1 billion market represented in these workers. So what we've done is we're in the process of providing this application that will allow them to make the connection via their smartphone, and with the idea of having them be able to get employed, get them to work, immediately. So the contractor needs someone, they can put it into their smartphone, they'll get people that are available now and be able to connect and get people to work. So that's what we're doing overall. Our team is made up of people experienced in the construction industry, both Rudy himself, who runs his own construction firm. We have an IT services company, the founders that are also part of our team. So they got experience in software, they got experience in different kinds of apps in general. In addition, one of the founders actually worked for a staffing agency in the background, so he understands what it takes to be able to get people on board. My background is primarily in high tech, but I grew up in the construction industry. My family's in the construction industry. And so I've got a background understanding of what it takes to both be hired as well as hiring people. So that's what the process that we're in right now. We are early stage, and we're based here in the Central Texas area.
All right, so this sounds amazing. This app that you've created, is it functional right now? Like, where are you at in the process?
We're in the process of working through getting all the wireframes finalized. We're just starting the coding to actually put the each screen together at this point. So we're probably see this live sometime in the first quarter of next year.
Okay. All right. So that's coming up really quickly here. The first quarter of next year is only 3 to 6 months away.
Exactly.
So you are right there in it. Okay. So who then is your customer? Like, is it bigger companies here, or is it the worker? Like, how does that all work?
It's a dual-sided market, and what I mean by that is that we both have general contractors. Typically, we're looking at someone that's probably under about $25 million in terms of their size, because they don't have an HR department, so they need help hiring people. So that's on the contractor side. That's on the hiring side, and then on the worker side, it's someone who's typically a 1099 type of employee, someone who is a temporary in nature. They come on board for a project, they go off and on, because again, these smaller contractors, it's difficult for them to hire people full time and maintain them through the process. They're looking for project-based kind of employees. And in some cases, that even means week to week, because when you're hiring a skill set, you don't need that skill set for the whole 3 months of a project. You need that skill set for a week. You need the foundation poured. You need a frame put up. You need, you need the interior painted, whatever it may be. It isn't a 3-month project. It tends to be a week or weeks. So those are the other kind of aspects of who we have, both the worker side as well as a contractor.
Okay. And so are the contractors then paying you to use the app, and then are the workers paying as well? Or is it just the contractors?
There's payment on both sides. It is a different rate, of course. Yeah. From the contractor side, it's basically we're asking is $100 up front. However, for the first 3 months of their use, it's free. So we want them to understand it. We want them to see it. We want to see the value. They want to be able to experience the value. And that value in terms of what it's worth to them is either one, if they use a staffing company, they may have anywhere from a 25 to 40 or 45% adder per employee if they use a staffing. If they go through their own workers, I know of contractors here, at least in the Texas area, that'll pay their employees $1,000 to help find somebody to be part of the crew. So if they're on board for, let's say, a couple of weeks, they'll pay them $1,000. So there's value in this. So when you're charging about $100 for subscription, it's not per hiring person, it's just for the subscription. It'll pay itself back, in the first day that you hire somebody. On the worker side, we're asking for $5. Again, if they're going to make anywhere from $80 to $200 a day, just getting the job for the week, paying $5 it means they get a job that much faster. $5 is inconsequential.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Miguel, can you talk through the problem that you're seeing and you're helping guide Work4Workers through here? Because you've been doing this for 45 years, right? So can you talk about that problem and what the day-to-day looks like for contract laborers?
Yeah, no, certainly. I think depending on the size of your firm or where you're at in the genesis of your business, you could be starting from scratch with very little bandwidth as far as your own personal self doing the work by yourself. And as you build capacity by getting new clients and repeat work, sooner or later you're faced with the problem that I can't do this all by myself any longer, and I need to bring in help. And where do I find this help? And how do I quantify this help? And how do I develop this network of tradespeople that can help me and help them along the way? So, it's a big issue at the beginning of your company. And as you continue to grow, it continues to be a bigger and bigger problem. So this kind of cuts to the chase for you to make sure that you can find these workers other than driving up to the local lumber yard or material supply house and kind of taking a chance on somebody that looks firm and fit and just going for it. And so this is intended to solve that solution.
Okay. Wow. So walk me through the process then of typically what happens if, say, a construction project needs laborers for a day. You mentioned, does a project manager or the manager, do they literally go to, a store like a Home Depot or something like that and find laborers? Is that typically how it works now?
Well, typically, a lot of the people that I knew that started their business, they started as one person, and they're doing everything themselves. And then slowly and surely, you know what? I'm probably better off having somebody bring that lumber to me than me bringing the lumber from the truck to the job site. So you start thinking about the process. And so now you have someone who can bring the lumber to you, where you can actually erect the lumber rather than spend your time moving lumber around. And so that's the genesis of building your crew. And that may only be for a week that you need all the lumber there. And so who do I get? Who do I reach out to until I have a steady workforce or continuing to build this capacity? And that's where it really comes in very handy. Or you could be doing a concrete slab, and you need 10 guys today to finish the slab. And you have 3 guys. It takes 10. What do you do to get the other 7? And the concrete's coming tomorrow. You've got it scheduled, and you need people to help you finish this concrete slab. So there's an immediate need to get your work done.
So Miguel, is it fair to say that probably the first place you start is friends and family?
That's exactly right. Hey, who do you know who wants a job that can get to work on time, and they can and definitely show up on time, work 8 hours, and be ready to go the next day? Those are all caveats that are not synonymous in this industry.
So would it be fair to characterize this as the Uber for temporary laborers? Is that what you're going for to a degree there, Phil?
Yeah, I think that's more than fair. What we're trying to do is rather than going out and looking for a ride from a taxi company. Well, in this case, what we're trying to do is we're not trying to replace a staffing agency. To a great extent, staffing agency can use our software as well. What we want to do is complement them and make them more efficient. At the same token, what we want to do is for a contractor, they can load in all of their contacts and keep them private. So we're allowing them to put it into our software for free, so they don't have to. What we find is a lot of contractors, they hammer to fit, paint to match to make their contact list in their phone fit the workers, because they may say this guy's good, or he's slow, or he's fast, or he's top quality. He has 3 workers with him. All these notes you put in there. And so what we allow that to do is we actually can help the contractor by loading it, by being able to load into our software, and they can keep it private. So if they don't want those workers available to other contractors, that's fine. Yeah. So it's all there to be able to get people to work faster. That's really what we're trying to do.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, one thing that Uber is pretty good at, and I know they've invested significantly in, is the vetting process for their drivers. And just the evaluation, background checks, and all that. And I feel like for you all, for Work4Workers, that could be a great way to make sure that everybody involved can feel safe with this process and know that they are great workers, right? So Can you talk about that vetting process?
So what we're doing is starting very simple, and where we're doing it is by allowing both sides to rate each other 1 to 5 stars, what people are used to doing today. In terms of being able to vet them, every contractor has their own way of interviewing, okay? And they have their own way of interviewing for the individual skill set they're looking for. And depending on the local location, in terms of things like how important is it to have a vehicle to get, in the Bay Area, you've got to have a vehicle. In parts of Texas, it's distance. You've got to have a vehicle. Okay. So there's things like that you've got to find out. Do they have tools? And then you need to be able to vet them in terms of their skill set. So it's more difficult for us to get in the way right now. So what we're trying to do is make the connection, make it more efficient for them to contact people and be able to make sure that they can then vet them themselves, that they're used to doing today. Part of when this is going to be new for people, and we don't want to introduce too much at once. When you're changing behaviors, you have to be careful that you fit the behavior they're used to rather than just try to change everything on them overnight. So the first thing we're doing is make the connection, give them a way to contact them. At the end of the day, they can rate them if they've been really good or really bad. Okay. And they can keep their secret sauce of how they do interviews. And, you know, I think, Miguel, if it's fair to say that it depends not just you, but if one of your peers, how you guys interview may not be the same. Is that fair?
No, absolutely. You know, some people may not want to, you know, a lot of these guys that have small firms, you know, they don't have work all the time. So what do? Watch TV all day? Well, maybe I should get on the app and find somebody who does have work. Now you're getting a superstar. But you know he's not going to be an employee of yours. He's your competitor. And so you may work in 2 or 3 days. You had work for that week, and then your job starts up. So it becomes an opportunity to fill in holes in your own personal schedule and provide services to another contractor who needs help for that day or week. And so, yeah, it's a superstar who can do painting is not necessarily a superstar who can build a fence. And the skill sets to put a fence in are not the skill sets to put a cabinet in. They're just different tools and different mentalities.
Oh, that's an interesting point, Miguel. And so to that, Phil, like, I know this app is just starting out, but will you be able to rate each employee based on whether they can build a fence, whether they can do painting, whether they're good at X, Y, or Z?
Same kind of thing that you'd see, whether if you look at an Airbnb, you rate the Airbnb. Underneath that, you can put things: was it clean? Was it this? Was it, you know, was it easy to check in, et cetera? Well, in our case, what we're trying to make sure of is did they have the skill set that they said they did? Okay, did they show up on time, and did they work safely? And those are the kind of the key things that we're looking at to start with. There's other things behind that, but you know, you got to keep. We don't want to make it too complex to start with. But the key things that I think for a contractor they're looking for is could they do what they said they could do? Mm-hmm. Okay, and maybe they exaggerate a little bit their skill, but even if they have, you know, the basic skills of framing, let's say, then that's great. But if they show up and they don't know which end of the hammer to pick up, then that's a different issue. So there's skill. Then the rest is, did they show up? And one of the things you have to find out is, and people are again used to doing this, is if you need 3 guys, you may want to hire 5 because only 3 are going to show up. And what happens is something happens. Their truck breaks down. Quite frankly, they get a better offer. Things change. And then there's some people that, quite frankly, they're not good employees. Mm-hmm. And you need to, and the system will take care of those over time. Okay. And then the last one is your team wants to be able to work with them. And one of the measures of that is being safe. And if they're not being safe around the rest of the employees, believe me, your staff, your other employees, whether they're all temporary or not, they have to work as a team. And if there's somebody that isn't working either, you know, hardworking or they aren't working safely, they don't want them around them. It makes them look bad, and it makes it dangerous for them to be working. So those are the kinds of things that we measure and that will, you know, suggest that are in that rating to go through that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see just how valuable this is. Phil, are there competitors in the marketplace right now? Like, has anybody come up with this before?
There's a few of them that have tried to do this. A few years ago, there was one that was fairly well funded, and it didn't make it. And the reason is they tried to do too much at once. They tried to guarantee the employee would show up. They did all the payroll through them, and they were doing it on a national basis. And you have issues of state laws that you've got to be careful of. There's local laws you have to be careful of. There's union issues in certain cities. To do that across the board from scratch is just too big of a bite to take. We're doing is setting up the connection and let the rest of the network, the rest of the system work the way it's working. We're just trying to get people connected faster. Mm-hmm. So that was one. There's a couple of companies that are doing this primarily, one in the Bay Area and another up in the Seattle area that have been out there. The issue is the following. I don't believe they understand their users. I don't think they understand the customers. And what I mean by that is the customer that we're dealing with here, in particular, well, not just the worker, but the contractor as well. They may have a smartphone, but there's a limited number of applications that they use on it. The other is they all use text or WhatsApp, but they don't tend to use email. So the first check I do when I look at my competitor is like, oh, what information do they ask? And if they ask for an email or they ask for a LinkedIn profile or Indeed profile, okay, I'm going, that's great, because they don't get it.
Yeah.
Okay, may have built a wonderful app or a wonderful website, but they're not going to get past, people aren't going to sign up past the first page when they ask them for their my what profile. It's they just don't know who they're talking to. And that's the main thing. Our main competitor today is what people do today, which is word of mouth or a staffing agency. Okay, what happens is you go out, you need somebody, you go to your, if it's a smaller firm, you may have a lead, and you go to the lead and you go, hey, I need 2 more guys tomorrow. Who do you know? And if you bring them in, I'll pay you something extra for doing it. Okay. Or you go through your contact list. Who did this work for me last time? Let me call them and see if they're available. And so you don't know this. So what we do is the people that we have on our site, they can mark whether they're available or not. They can mark what skill set they've got. And then we make the connection between the two. So that's what we're trying to do. All we ask for our sign up with us is your phone number. That's all we need. We don't need email. We don't want their email. We want their phone number. We want their name and their skill set and where they are. What's their zip code? So we can assign them to work nearby.
That's a pretty low barrier to entry right there. So that's great.
You got to keep it simple. These guys want to go to work, but they're not technologists. Okay. We're not hiring software professionals. Okay. This is not a software developer or, that we're, I don't ask them whether or not they know Python or what that's not one of the questions.
That's good. Yeah. So you mentioned a competitor then is the way things are done now.
Yeah.
So, all right, how do you get people to change that? That seems to be, to me, like to get people to change what they've been doing for their whole careers, right? And to change the way employers have been doing things for the life of their companies, their construction crews and whatever else. That seems to be difficult. Like, how do you get people to change their day to day?
It's got to be about proof. I mean, it's got to be through referrals. And so what we have to do is to get people signed up. That's why we can't charge anything. We've got to show what people can do with it. We've got to show them value. And we've got to get this out in front of people to be able to do it and show them how it works. So it's everything from, it means there is a local potential contact, or there's ways that we can reach out to people digitally and be able to reach them where they are, which is, you've got to know that they're on Facebook. Okay. If you want to go to a job posting site here in Austin, where construction workers go, you go to La Chachara, which is a Facebook page here in Austin. Okay. You need to know where these people are, where they hang out. And you know what else? You go take a big thing of coffee and you go visit a job site. Okay. You go find some cold waters or some coffee or some sandwiches or tacos or whatever it's going to take to get some guys to come up and talk to you. It's things like that you've got to do. So there's both the high touch as well as the low touch digital way, and you've got to do both. And then what happens is you then use what people use today, which is the network, their network, which means you show people how they work, and then be able to get this on whether it's local radio stations, other things that people use and utilize, both, and it's got to be bilingual. 30% of the workers we're talking about per BLS data again are Latino. So it's got to be bilingual. So that's the other aspect of it.
Miguel, can you feed off of what Phil said there? What do you see as far as how you get people to use this?
Yeah, and then clearly, from the worker perspective, literally in San Francisco, we have designated corners in the streets where the workers are allowed to stand and wait for vehicles to pick them up for work that day. And they're defined as day workers. That is the day worker location. So it's on a transit hub right off the freeway. And so they're looking for that opportunity. Those are anxious to have a day's worth of work. And that is, on the worker's perspective, those are the people we're trying to reach. Those are the people that would be on that worker side, that have a phone, and that's all they have. They don't have much more than that and don't use much more than that. And then on the worker's perspective, it becomes to carry at the lumber house, at the supply house, and you, again, through word of mouth, you start to develop that network and saying, wow, this was actually pretty good. I don't have to go to the street corner. I don't have to look for people. Now all I have to do is punch them in, ask for what I need, and they'll come to me.
So one of the things that Miguel brings up here, I'm sorry for jumping in, Jason, but it's something that's important to me, which is when you as a worker have to go to a street corner and look for help, and you wait for that truck to pull up, and you basically have to just swallow your dignity, because you've got to force your way among the guys at your left, on your left and your right, to go up there, and they go, can you paint? Yes, I can. Well, can you do drywall? Yes, I can. Can you do concrete? The answer is, what your goal at that point is to get in the back of that truck and be taken to the job site. Once you're there, you're going to fake it, or you're going to tell them, well, I can't do that, but I can do this. Please put me to work. Now, that's the best case, but you have to be able to, it's a tough environment, a tough way to spend every day you're looking for a job. And then what happens is, the other aspect of this, for both parties, both in terms of the guy pulling up in the truck and asking people you don't know from anybody to jump in the back of your truck, and then for the person jumping in the back of your truck, you don't know who's driving, so you don't have any idea, is he really going to pay me what he says he's going to pay me? Is he going to bring me back here, or is he going to leave me 30 miles from here at the end of the day with no money? And it's all on the trust. So that street corner, that supply house parking lot, wherever it is that you picked up work, it's kind of, it's not a, again, what I consider, it's one thing where you have to be able to lose a little self-worth when you're at that point. So one of the aspects of the reason we're doing this is we think the dignity of the workers needs to be greater, and their ability to be able to work when they're looking for work and get paid, if not that day, that week, on a fair basis. And for the contractor to be able to hire people that are not going to take advantage of them. And there's horror stories from both sides of things that can go wrong. Sure. That's one of the reasons it's driving us this here as well. You know, my family I'm second generation in the United States. My grandfather was a worker. My dad was an electrician. You have to look at this and just know that I'm not that far away from knowing that by the grace of God, I could be the guy there on that street corner, because, you know, my family did before me, and I'd like to be able to improve that situation. And that's one of the things, and you see with our other founders, we all have that same kind of heart, you know, portion of our heart that we want to improve that situation.
Wow. Gosh, that safety part of it is just huge. And I see that as one of the biggest values here in this app, for sure. Just want to remind everybody who's watching in on LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitter, if you have questions for Phil and Miguel, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll get to as many as we can. Guys, I've got a question on ambassadorship here. Like, I feel like a great way to get the word out there is to have zealots, like to have ambassadors for your program, to have those early adapters, and say to their friends who they're working with, hey, have you tried this? Like, is there a way to mobilize them? Is there a way to get them excited, you know, beyond just saying this worked for me? Are you guys providing any sort of incentive for them?
So the way we're doing that is if they would like to have another free month, then we're asking them to recommend 3 people, sign 3 people up that'll be assigned to their number, or at least be referred back to their number, so we can tell who they came in via, who referred them. So both on the contractor side as well as the worker side. So there is some incentive at the lowest level. The other incentive is working with people that they're dealing with today. So we want to get out to people that are in the industry, the people who sell. If you're doing concrete and you need to buy rebar, the guy who delivers the rebar, the guy who sells you that, who's been out there, the guy who sells the tools in the job site, you want to make sure that they're spiffed a little bit. Hey man, how about $100 Home Depot credit card if you are gift card? But here's the thing: load in 100 people and you get it. And here's your own QR code that's assigned to you, so we'll know how many people you signed up. So there's some guerrilla marketing that we absolutely have part of this. The other thing that we have, if I may, and it's we've got contacts to contractors all over the U.S. In this particular case, they're Latino contractors that we have a network of. And so what we want to do is, and we do that through both Miguel is a graduate of an executive education program, as well as two of our founders are. And it's a program through Stanford called the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative. And we have access to that network, which is hundreds of contractors that have gone through the program. That's one. The other is there's both Latino and non-Latino versions of general contractor associations in every city. So we can get to them and be able to access more contractors themselves. So there's there's ways to reach people where they are, and that's part of what our plan is.
Gotcha. Okay. Can you talk about your team a little bit? So I see you two here, and Phil, you're the leader, and but what about like the tech team? You've got this app that'll be developed in the next, say, 3 to 6 months. Who's on your team that's making that happen?
So our CTO is Javier Oblitas. Javier has been running his own IT services company with his brother Manuel. And Javier is our CTO, and he's driving the team that's doing the development. They have an existing team that they're using for this, so they're using their own IT services company team that we've hired to do all of the work. So we don't have to go recruit people. We know people that have already got the backgrounds in with iOS as well, and et cetera, that they have that can do app development, that they can do the back end development for everything on the server side. They've got the backgrounds and they've got the teams already in place to do that. So that's Javier's background. Manuel is more of a marketing guy because he has a technology background, but he also understands customers and clients, and he understands how to put the two of those together. And then Rudy's kind of our he's kind of our guiding light through this, because he is the first client that we had himself. And so he's looking at this and reminding us, because he deals with this on a daily basis, is, what does it take to get in front of folks? What are they looking for? What's driving them? What are their needs? What do they pay for that they're paying for now? What does it cost them not to have work? What does it cost them not to have workers? And so he's kind of our conscience through this. And for me, I'm kind of the guy that's done a little bit of both. So I've done other startups before. It's part of what you have to have is a team that can work together and understands each other well, because any startup's got to be able to go through some bumps in the road. And if a team can operate when it hits that first bump, then you got a problem. So you got to make sure people can work together well, and they understand each other, and they have similar goals, and they have similar values. And we believe we've got that with the four of us that have started this. And then we've got folks like Miguel that are helping us to make sure that as much as we love Rudy in his direction, we want to make sure we don't just listen to a single person. So Miguel's experienced enough to be able to help us and take a look at that. And then on the startup side, and be able to do that, we've got two advisors in Bill Clem and Billy Edwards, who have both done multiple startups in their careers, and they can certainly add advice to us in terms of what it takes when it comes to structuring the company, getting it up and running, evaluating investment opportunities, all of those types of things, in addition to introducing us to investors. So those are the kinds of things that all of the team is doing. And for myself, I've done multiple startups. I mentor a number of startups out there in the world today. And I thought I was in the world of being more of a mentor and advisor, but I saw this as an opportunity I couldn't pass up. And I felt that I was lucky enough to have the background that was a pretty good fit. So and I enjoyed working with the guys, and that's what got me involved and is keeping me engaged.
No, I read your LinkedIn and saw your successful startups in the past, and yeah, it just when you thought you were out, they pulled you back in because of the opportunity here. That's awesome. So you mentioned, or I mentioned at the top of the show, fundraising. You're doing some crowdfunding, and that's on fundify.com for everybody listening. You can go to fundify.com and find Work4Workers there and invest for little money. But a couple of questions on fundraising. So have you fundraised in the past before this crowdfunding?
Yes, I have. So I both worked with individual companies as a board advisor most recently, but I've also done that myself as being part of a founding group. I was part of in this case, a more technical company in terms of, I was part of a low power microprocessor.
Sorry, I should have said Work4Workers. Has Work4Workers fundraised before?
Yes, we've talked to a number of VCs out there today, but it's kind of interesting is the whole COVID thing has it hasn't stopped the market. What it's done is it's kind of made people a little more careful about where they're investing. And so people want to see the MVP, or they want to see the first revenue. And to get that, of course, you've got to have some investment to be able to do that. And we've also we had our own ability to put in some of our own money, which we have done. So the founders have put in some money themselves, but what Fundify has allowed us to do is now be able to not only reach new people, but also the ability to have friends and family invest through Fundify, and allows us to be able to use a single platform to be able to manage all of those investments. So that's kind of what we've done to date, and that's going to allow us to get to a milestone that's going to be more attractive to the more classic VCs.
Okay. So then to get to that milestone, and you're raising a certain amount of money, we don't need to get into specifics of that, but what will you be using money for? Is it for marketing? Is it for app development? Is it to bring on other members of the team? Like what are you looking to?
The primary aspect of this is really focused on development. All of us are working for free at this point, so to speak. So it's not in terms of staffing. Our focus is really getting the development done. The marketing can be done. Again, if you can't do too much marketing up front without the product, you've got to have the product to show people. So that's really the long pole in the tent that we're starting with here.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's fast forward 6 months from now. Actually, let's go 12 months from now. You've had an app for, let's say, 8 months. What's the best case scenario here? What are you expecting, for Work4Workers?
Our goal as we're starting this is doing it at a regional launch. So we're going to start with Central Texas. We're going to expand to other parts of Texas within that time period that you've outlined. From there is looking at where the other states we've got to go to. And we have to do it state by state because employment laws. And there are states that will be very similar to Texas and not an issue, but then there's other issues. There are states like California that have specific employment laws around 1099 employees, as well as construction requirements. There's local laws that say you have to, as an example, you have to hire people within a X mile radius to the project. You have to know that. And so what we're trying to do is during that, and there's other examples, but I'm just going to stop there. And so our intent is to be able to find either someone to, our thought is, one is hire somebody locally. 2 is to license this to a contractor in that area to help start it out themselves. Or 3 is perhaps finding a partner either through a complete buyout or some type of investment or some type of partnership with a staffing company. So those are the kinds of areas, and we're going to do this state by state. I can't even say region. It has to be state by state because of specific laws.
Okay, gotcha. So where are you starting then? And then how many states do you expect to be in
So probably in a year, I wouldn't think, I think it's going to take us a year to get through Texas, quite frankly.
Okay.
and it's a big enough state. There's enough folks here, and you take a look at the metroplexes of just San Antonio, and I'll put Austin kind of with that in Central Texas, and then Houston and Dallas and the DFW area. Those metroplexes by themselves would be awesome to get started. That will then allow us to learn of what we've got to do to be able to move into new regions and new areas. And I think, certainly surrounding states would be similar in terms of their state laws, from what I understand, and try to grow from there. And again, other than that, there's nothing stopping from someone in another area to start using our software, start using the app. It's just that we may not go in and be actively supporting it in terms of not supporting it, but engaging to add more people. I mean, if word of mouth takes us there, the platform will work. That's not the issue.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, guys, this is great. And I'm going to add some audience questions here. So this one's for Miguel. Besides some of the challenges that that you mentioned already, like, what are some of the bigger challenges that we haven't mentioned so far to growing this?
So clearly, as Phil mentioned, every locale and each city and state have their own specific employment laws and contracting laws. So clearly understanding those and making the application work to be in compliance is going to be extremely beneficial for everybody's peace of mind, so to say. And then obviously, whether you're doing small residential work, small commercial work, or highly industrialized work, how are there different bandwidths to understand those skill sets and those employers? Because there could be union projects or just open shop day labor work. So there's a significant amount of different bandwidth for employment opportunities, and having that solution that makes sense.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Another question that we have here is how do you work with, and is it okay to work with people who aren't U.S. citizens here?
So our look at this is that it's folks that are undocumented today are obviously working here in the U.S. today. And a lot of the construction projects wouldn't happen if these people weren't available. Okay. That's just the reality of the world we're in right now and the country we're in right now. What we're doing is we're allowing people to connect. We don't ask. Okay. It's not our place. It's the same connection that they would get no matter what. And it's then up to the employer and the worker themselves of what the relationship is and how they get paid and what they do and what kind of work they're doing. We stay out of it. And it's, and we don't have information. We don't have their address. We don't keep information like that in our database. So it's one of these things where we're not promoting it, but we're not stopping it because, again, we stopped it. We stopped construction here in the U.S. It just wouldn't operate. And there's other aspects of this that I won't go into for other reasons, but it primarily, I don't want to take a little bit of political stance on this. So I'd say that what we're trying to do is enable efficiency in the construction industry. And that means you've got to find workers wherever you can find them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. So one last question here from the audience is COVID. Like, how has COVID and Delta either slowed you down, and then how do you forecast that for the future when people are working all together?
So I'd say from our side and the development side, it's having to do with it's caused some issues in terms of raising money as people are being more cautious. That's one issue. In terms of the contractors, if anything, if I talk to contractors, and I want Miguel to address this directly for himself, but my discussions with people have been, they're busier than they've ever been before, but it's not a good busy necessarily. Okay, because there's chaos. The whole issue of COVID and how you hire people and what they have to do safety wise and the kind of things they have to follow and training and all of those types of things and projects that come and go depending on different situations. all related to COVID about, do they have people signed up for a commercial building, or people, not coming into the office, so they don't need to add more offices right now. All of these things are viewed as temporary that we thought was going to be less than a year. It's now going on 2 years. So we're adjusting. But so what it's doing is it's adding chaos and unknowns.
Yes.
And that impact has impacted not just ourselves trying to do the development, but it's impacted our customer base. But the trend in general is they have more work, they have fewer workers, and they've got a problem as a contractor. And then COVID on top of this is just like, oh, come on. Really, what else can you throw at me here? And because it's just the unknown. And it's just trying to keep everybody safe and new training. So Miguel, maybe you can talk a little about what COVID has done for your business and what you've had to do.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of municipalities, once they got past the initial shock of, sequestration and shutdown, realizing that certain industries are critical to, the basic functions of our communities. So we were considered an essential industry with proper protocol, and that's where the COVID-19 of today is the SARS-10 of tomorrow, and so we're in a place in our society that we're going to be facing these issues. So wouldn't it be great to have this application that says we're in compliance with the latest safety protocol, and these people that are coming to your job have this criteria that they meet? Because we as a company, my company, we're required to have people vaccinated. We have to adhere to certain safety protocols, but that's my company. So how do we translate that to the business owner that wants to make sure that he's not impacting his client, and when they come to do work at his house, and to give that comfort and uniformity across the network? And how do I, as an employee, say, hey, I'm good, I'm tested, I don't have SARS-22, I don't have COVID-23, or whatever it may be this year. Unfortunately, the way our global economy is, we're going to be facing these issues moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing that across all industries, right? I mean, even you look at the NBA news, and people just maybe they're not going to play and sit out the whole year. So yeah, safety first, and I appreciate that. So we keep getting more questions. I thought we were about to wrap, but we keep getting more questions here. So the equity crowdfunding on Fundify, what will that help you? And you touched on it a little bit already, but what will that help you accomplish? And what will it help you? How will it help you get to the breakthroughs that you need to succeed?
The biggest thing we've got to do is we've got the product fairly well defined. We have wireframes done. We have in terms of what each of the screens need to look like. Now we actually have to do the coding of not just what the user interface looks like, but also the interaction between, the smartphone and back at the server, and being able to make the connection and do the matching, so to speak, in the background. Those types of work needs to be able to just be pulled together. In addition, we've got to do things like enable the ability to do things like get the text going within the application, making sure we can take payments in the application. All of those kinds of things need to be done. Now, a lot of that's off-the-shelf stuff, so we don't have to develop it. We just got to make sure we've got the API for it. We've got to be able to, to make the connections. So I may be going a little bit into the sausage making, but it's really, just getting that work done and getting the product up and functional. And the functionality is at very high level to start with. We talked about things like, whether they have, their code, whether they're vaccinated, whether they've got a union card, all of these different things that we can put in there. Can they show pictures of their work? We can all of that are things we could do over time. Okay, to make you could hire somebody with the more information you get of somebody, the better. The more information you provide to somebody, the better as a worker. We can do those kinds of things and add those features. But right now, we're just doing the basic connection app, and that's what the money's being used for. And that gets us really, hardcore coding work being done. We're getting all of the, user interface stuff done, and all of that's being done right now. We've done that off of money we've put in as founders. But the crowdsourcing funding is really just going to be able to get us going from there. In terms of the kinds of functionality and other things that we can do, and more information, some videos and things like that. If people have more questions, I don't think we're going to be able to get to them all in the time we've got. But I can tell you that, again, I'll just send them back to fundify.com. There's more information in there. It'll take them a while to get through it all. And I really, really recommend them to just start there and start working their way through the information.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. And again, that website is fundify.com, and you can go to fundify.com/marketplace to find more information on that crowdfunding campaign. Super exciting, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today on Startup Spotlight.
Jason, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Jason,
right.
Be well, and Phil, both of you be well and stay safe.
Miguel, thank you, buddy.
All right. And thank you, everybody, for listening to this. We'll be back again on Friday for another Startup Spotlight at 1 o'clock Eastern Time on Friday. But until then, I'm Jason Gillikin with Earfluence, and we'll see you next time on Startup Spotlight.